Will we get a double dip recession? Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian.Heise here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee, because we're going to talk about an article from Yahoo Finance, written by Kukulis, asking the question if the Australian economy is, well, about to hit a brick wall, or will we get a double dip recession, everyone? Before we look at this, though, let's jump... Oh, wait, I highlighted the wrong thing. Before we look at this, let's jump over here and have a look at Australia's current GDP growth. And here we have it from December 2012. We can see we've been growing. And actually, to be quite honest, since 2008, if you look at our GDP growth per capita, per person, it's been going down. It's been going down below trend for most of that time. One could almost argue that our economy has been depressed, and that perhaps the rapid increase in population growth was done to help fuel an increase in GDP and support a property market. But, you know, mate, that's just crazy talk. So we can see here the quarterly growth, and then throughout the year. So boom, we had 1 quarter of negative growth, 2 quarters of huge negative growth. So we are coming out of, well, technically a recession. 2 quarters of negative growth, among other indicators, is a way to measure a recession. GDP, you know, the usefulness of it is questionable, but, you know, we are in a recession. Now, one thing, or we've had a recession, one thing to keep in mind is that there tends to be a flow-on, a delay to some of the impact of a recession. And I'm just going to bring up a chart here, which I think demonstrates that quite well. This is office vacancy rates. Now, you know, remember the recession Australia had to have, guys, back here? Look at how the vacancy rates were delayed for a few years until they peaked. So, you know, recession, it's over. Fantastic, we're out of recession. But the impact of it takes some time to flow through to the economy. And the question is, have we actually recovered, or are we just being fueled by all the government intervention, government stimulus, and will we, hang on, clicked on the wrong thing, will we potentially go back down and have a double dip recession, a W-shaped recovery? That's the question. So what is a double dip recession, everyone? Well, it's essentially a W-shaped recovery. So you go down here, an example in the 80s, go back up and then down again. So, and then back up and then down again. Kind of like a W, guys, in your economic growth. What can cause a double dip recession? Maybe, you know, the government is just pumping the economy too much with artificial stimulus, and then they pull it out. The economy doesn't have any legs. Once the life support is removed, what people thought was economic growth is just government pumping into the economy. Or the government could, you know, tax you, increase taxes, suck more money out of the economy, and then just stall any attempt of business and people to crawl out of the tough times. So this is the definition from Investopedia. A double dip recession refers to a recession followed by a short-lived recovery, followed by a recession. For whatever reason, after the initial recession has passed, the recovery stalls, and the second round of recession sets in just as, or even before, the economy has fully recovered from the losses of the initial recession. One good indicator of a double-dip recession is when GDP growth slides back to negative after a few quarters of positive growth. A double-dip recession is also known as a W-shaped recovery. So the last double-dip recession in the United States occurred during the early 1980s. So that's the question. That's what we need to consider. Are we potentially facing a double-dip recession? Because, well, we're aware of how much government intervention has happened here. And just to refresh your memory, I will bring that up once I find it. You know, government to the rescue, everyone. You know, stimulating the market. They've been keeping zombie companies alive. We know how many external administrations haven't occurred. There's some people estimating we'll have 5,000 businesses, 5,000 insolvencies expected. JobKeeper, up to nearly 9% of Victoria was on JobKeeper, guys. These things aren't normal. You know, the housing market is getting juiced. Look at building approvals up, cash rate is low, 5% government loan guarantees, money handed out left, right, and center. Home builder, everyone, home builder's juicing the market. Don't kid yourself. Don't think you're getting that money and you're not going to pay for it in inflated costs. Well, timber. It's in trouble because of supply issues and demand issues at the same time. And, reduced spending or reduced supply, everyone. And uncertainty, so people have been saving. So government intervention, it's occurred. So that's the concern. Will we have a double-dip recession when they pull it out? So let's have a look. Let's ask the question. Let's look at this article written by Kukulis and see what he has to say. So, in the last year, the Australian economy outperformed all expectations as it negotiated the pandemic or the lockdowns, with cuts in interest rates, easy credit, and a substantial fiscal policy stimulus, all doing their part in helping this relatively good news. Mention must also be made of the fabulous Chinese economy, which is getting back to full strength and in the process of buying lots of Australian commodities and paying a very high price for those goods. The impact of the influence of Chinese economic activity on Australia should not be underestimated. Well, yes, China is a big part of our economy, our biggest trading partner here, everyone. So, honestly, they saved us during the GFC. Okay, it wasn't Rudd, it was China. The big question now is, will this good news continue? While a double-dip recession... What's going on here with my highlighter? While a double-dip recession remains a low probability, it is very unlikely, there are a few warning signs on the momentum for the Australian economy, particularly as economic policy is tightened and population growth via immigration remains at its weakest point in over 100 years. Retail sales have slumped 4% in the last 3 months, which bodes poorly for household consumption growth early in 2021. The Westpac card tracker fell sharply in April to a point where card usage is below the level prevailing before the pandemic hit in early 2020. Well, people are uncertain. People don't know what's gonna happen, so they're saving or they're paying down debt. Or maybe they just can't spend on retail because housing has just gone crazy and they're struggling to keep up the capacity of their deposits. The federal budget, which will be handed down by Treasurer Josh Frydenberg on the 11th of May, will show a massive and record 16% cut in real government spending in 21-22. In dollar terms, this is a cut of $104 billion in the amount of government spending in just a 12-month period. This is an extraordinary cut, especially in the context of unemployment still being around 6%, with record low wage growth and still sluggish business investment. The fiscal austerity from Frydenberg in the budget is very risky if the private sector does not pick up the slack that will be left by the scaling back of government demand. The latest RBA forecasts are for GDP growth at 3.5% in the year to the June quarter 2022 and a further 3% by June quarter 2023. These are plausible but will require many things to go right. It will require consumer spending to pick up from early 2021 slump. The housing market will need to keep growing. Business investment will need to strengthen, and the global economy, and China in particular, to deliver strong growth. Such a positive growth outlook is also predicted on a further recovery in the labour market and higher household income growth. The current wages data and outlook casts doubt on this leg of the strong recovery story. One of the lessons from earlier recessions, and especially the 1930s Great Depression, was that economic policy was often tightened too early, just after there'd been a few snippets of good news. This meant unemployment stayed higher for longer, and in hindsight, policy errors were made. The government will need to be agile if its budget in May turns out to be too austere, too early in the economic recovery. A rethink of government spending, a new version of JobKeeper and other stimulus measures may yet be needed later in 21 and 22. It is also important to note that extra monetary policy stimulus is unlikely. The RBA has signaled that it is reluctant to implement negative interest rates, with the only additional monetary easing possibly in the form of additional bond buying and an extension of the loan facility. This is because our Reserve Bank governor has argued that negative interest rates kind of don't make much difference. They don't. If anything, they encourage people to save more because you're losing money. Your money's losing value, so you save more. That's not what they want. They want to keep you spending, everyone. It seems strange, doesn't it? You save more when you lose money. So we're not out of the woods. In Australia, the labour market is still weak, and there are significant segments of the economy under severe pressure. It is still a long way from getting back to full health. The latest downside threat to the economy is the debacle in the vaccination rollout. The failure to rapidly roll out vaccinations in Australia will delay any opening of international borders, which will continue to weigh international tourism and the university sector. It also risks lockdowns whenever there is a hot spot breakout of the pandemic, moves which hurt businesses and jobs. While the economy looks to be in a reasonable position, it won't take much to go wrong, including in the budget, for this good news to turn sour. So there we have Koukoulas' take on it. I mean, he is obviously, with his political positions and his economic opinions, he is in favor of more government intervention and more government spending. He's worried that if they pull it out too early, if they stop, they stop providing this support to the economy, if they pull the supports away, it's going to come down. So could this potentially provide that double dip recession? That's the question, everyone. Will we be heading to this? So let's talk about some solutions to this, guys. Well, what solutions are there really? Well, as an individual, I suggest just be skeptical about everything we're hearing from the media, from the news, from the politicians, from pundits, and be prepared. Just be prepared. I'd be cautious in any bold moves for what you do and plan. But then again, that's just advice for everything, really. We're kind of along with the ride with what's going to happen with this budget. I'd love to see a reduction in, there's a reduction in government spending. Fantastic. Are they going to start scaling back government? That'd be interesting to see if they do that. Just the novel idea, maybe advocating for smaller government or some experimentation. I've been talking about special economic regions around the country to kind of experiment with removing government burden, changing legislation up to free economic activity and business opportunities. But we'll have to see. At the very least, we need to discuss these ideas so they can start to get some public exposure. Anyway, guys, thank you all for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe to the channel. If you're a fan and enjoy the content I create here, there are a few ways you can support us. Simply watching the channel and sharing the content is a great way to help the channel grow. You can support us financially via joining us on YouTube or Patreon. You can use any of our affiliate links you can find down below from Amazon, eBay, Independent Reserve, or AussieBroadband. You can buy our merch from HeiseSays. We've got pocket squares handmade by Rachel you can find on the HeiseSays blog, or from Teespring. You can use Gold Pass from the Perth Mint or support us via PayPal. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I will see you all in the next episode. Bye for now.